not about global warming. It's not about sustainable development. It's about enslaving humanity. They want to wipe out small, medium-sized producers, centralize food control in the hands of mega corporations in bed with the mega governments. They want to move the population into the mega cities and ultimately bring about this great reset in what they call the New World Order.
Thanks for joining me, Pastor Chris Morgan, your host for today's current events in the world that we are living in. In today's episode, I'll attempt to help connect the dots to some real life issues with what the Bible predicts will happen in the very last of the last days. I'll begin with Matthew chapter 24, verse 7, where Jesus prophesied of worldwide famines and pestilences. We also see in Revelation chapter 6, during the 7 years of tribulation, when the third seal was opened, it describes global food shortages, famines, poverty, and even controlled inflation by the rich global elites leading the world into a place of submission. Jesus even warned in Luke 21, verse 26, that during this time, men's hearts would fail them for fear of those things that are coming upon the earth. Now, what you're about to see and hear, I believe, are certainly steps that could lead to this type of control that the Bible warns us of. Yet in Luke 21, verse 28, Jesus said that when all these things begin to happen, lift your heads, look up, for your redemption is near. And in the previous mention, Matthew 24, Jesus talked about, he also told us, when we see these things, we're not to let our hearts be troubled. So you're about to learn how things like climate change and sustainable development are just part of a bigger agenda of global governments and control by the world's elite. As always, man makes his own demise, as man's plans without God always leads to a place of death and destruction. And these people will not only try to destroy humanity under the guise of saving the planet, but really are working a satanic plan to rid the earth of God's authority. In 2 Timothy chapter 3, it describes men becoming lovers of themselves, greedy, lovers of money, proud boasters, and devoid of God. It says men will actually become seducers, evil men, and seducers will wax worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. If this doesn't describe some of what you're about to see, I don't know what does.
Food prices are skyrocketing around the world. And if you listen to world leaders, they'll tell you it's due to climate change.
Climate change is the biggest threat for the human beings.
And their solution might surprise you.
There are 1,900 edible insect species on the planet.
The European Commission has officially declared mealworms to be food.
Yes, this is future food.
The people in charge have determined that by switching our diet to crickets, ants, and mealworms, we'll be able to stop temperatures from rising, lower the price of food, and possibly to even save the planet.
It's never about innovation, it's always about getting rid of farmers.
Agenda 21 was meant to be the agenda for the 21st century. Some of the goals sound nice. Ending hunger. Who could possibly be against ending hunger? It requires total power from the state.
I think it's a scam. A lot of this came about in the early 70s, the Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, which were good things, but it's been abused from what the original intent is.
No, there's not a farm anymore. No, there's also not a farm anymore.
So all these people shut down because of the government policies?
Yeah.
I'm the 6th generation of farmer.
Yeah, I'm the 4th generation.
How many years have they owned this plot of land?
40 years.
I think we're the last generation.
They're shutting down the small and middle-sized family-run farms.
We either own property or we are property.
I don't think we can trust the government anymore because they want the land.
And our founding fathers understood that the land would be distributed among the people so they could always control their government.
Right now, things have tripled as far as cost. I think you're going to see across the board higher food prices.
Has anybody been held accountable for screwing up? No.
As every communist tyrant of the last 100 years has understood, if you control the food, you control the people.
Everything is falling apart. There is a shortage of food.
We're heading for a world food crisis, as we hear all the time.
Do you see any hope for the situation?
Yeah, we have to continue fighting for it. No farmers, no food. They will know it.
There's no doubt that there's a real attack on farmers happening on every corner of this planet, which logically poses one very obvious question.
If you get rid of the farmers, you still need to eat something, especially protein, right?
Maybe they don't want the food production like it is right now. We produce potatoes, and we produce milk, and we produce meat, and maybe there's a government who doesn't want us to eat anymore that kind of food.
Instead turn to what?
Oh, insects, bugs, I don't know.
Today, the European Commission has officially declared mealworms to be food. It could be a game changer for insect farmers. They're now hoping to grow their businesses and turn insects into another source of protein for Europeans, even if just a niche one.
There's this top-down globalist idea that certain Western countries have diets that they do not approve of. In other words, they're more meat-based, and they feel that humans don't need meat-based protein. And they want to either force people to follow their paradigms, or they want to buy or accumulate farmland, and that's how they're going to farm it. It's sort of like the Soviet Union or Mao's Cultural Revolution. It's top-down, and it results in disasters.
The UN Food and Agriculture Organization in 2013, they put out this very bizarre report, and they said we need Westerners to start eating bugs, right? And that wasn't on anybody's radar. We didn't eat bugs, that's disgusting. And so they said we need a massive propaganda campaign in the media to convince them that they're going to save the planet. Well, we're seeing that. NPR, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, the BBC, even Fox News, right? They've been peddling this idea that bugs are delicious and nutritious. Now you got all these celebrities eating bugs and teaching people that it's trendy and cool to eat bugs. And as we speak, they are right now building the largest insect protein processing facility on the planet outside Decatur, Illinois. They're building another one up in Canada. They know there's not really demand for bugs right now, right? How many Americans do you know that are clamoring for cricket sandwiches, right? Practically none. And so I expect that as these food shortages develop, as the price of staples goes through the roof, people will say, okay, I'm really hungry. My kids are really hungry. I can't afford a steak anymore. So, all right, I'll eat your stupid crickets.
When you start to see people like Bill Gates gobble up farmland, and you read what his foundation says about farming, when they say that we're going to have a particular type of agriculture, they want large blocks run by the government or by private consortia where they say we're not going to have animal-based proteins, we're not going to have stockyards, we're not going to have turkey farms, we're not going to have chicken. The academic mind always has the answers, but never in the real world. And they do a lot of damage.
Everywhere you look, small and medium-sized farms being gobbled up by these corporate mega farms because they can't keep up anymore. They can't comply with these endless streams of regulations that are coming down. We're seeing that in China now, where these giant mechanized corporate, big government-controlled mega farms are displacing all these little small family farms that families have been farming for hundreds of years, in some cases longer. They're moving them all off their little plots of land and moving them into these big, horrific mega cities that they have built. And we're going to see that all over the world with the decimation of small farms. So if they're not bankrupted by economic forces, the government itself will shut them down.
Everything is falling apart. There is a shortage of food. Many people do not have enough money to eat every day.
Everybody's out here today because they understand that when our government actually expropriates our farmers, we're all next.
Not just Holland is now facing these types of regulations, but you can see the attack on farmers all over the world. It's an agenda that is carried out on a global level, that is being pushed through government officials in respective countries.
This is precisely how the globalists have managed to take over national parliaments and national governments.
20 countries equal 80% of all the emissions.
Somebody from the UN Food and Agriculture Organization sent me this report. This came out in 2013. Nobody ever reads these things, but he said, this is important. You have to read this. So I read it and ended up writing an article about it. It was published in May of 2016. UN let them eat bugs. Kind of the Marie Antoinette. I don't know that she really said that. A lot of people say she didn't. But the report was about how they're going to make us eat bugs, how meat and chicken and traditional agriculture were not sustainable, and the food of the future was going to have to be creepy crawlers. And they actually have a big section in the report about, those Westerners, they're pretty picky with their food. They're not really going to want to eat bugs. We're going to have a major propaganda campaign. We'll use state-funded media, and we'll use government indoctrination centers masquerading as schools to get them used to the idea of eating bugs. And so I reported all this over 10 years ago. And then along comes Joe Biden.
With regard to food shortages, yes, we did talk about food shortages. And it's going to be real.
It's going to be real, right? So, a lot of people think, I'm not going to eat bugs. That's crazy, right? And Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum in their little video, they said by 2030, you're going to have to eat a lot less meat to save the planet. So how are they going to get people to eat bugs? Well, a combination of propaganda, indoctrinating children, and making you very, very hungry. And what you'll find as you look at these policies is every single one of the national and state and local policies traces directly back to various UN and World Economic Forum programs like Agenda 2030. Agenda 2030 was signed by every national government in the world in 2015. On behalf of the United States, Barack Obama called it an executive agreement. And it's a plan to totally transform every element of our lives. In fact, the head of the UN General Assembly at the time called it the Master Plan for Humanity. And if you read the preface, it says over and over again, no one will be left behind. And so a big part of this, as you read it, and I tie all the points back to that, is you got to transform agriculture, you got to transform the food supply, you got to transform every element of life. And so in keeping with that UN report on using government propaganda, here's the World Economic Forum promoting insect farming. Right? As we speak, they're actually building the largest insect protein manufacturing facility in the world in Decatur, Illinois. So the World Economic Forum thinks you need to eat the bugs. And here is the government-funded propaganda outlet known as PBS.
The future of food is being revolutionized by science, as new research helps bring unexpected ingredients to the table.
It kind of tastes like shrimp. They have this seafood quality to them.
It reminds you of like a Frito or a chip.
Yes, just a Frito or a chip, okay? So it's crazy talk, right? And so this actually comes from my home state of Florida. Everybody thinks our government schools in Florida are great. They're not. But this was sent to me by the parent of a concerned fifth grader. She was told that she had to do these workshops, and bugs are the food of the future. And she said, actually in the class, they told the kids that eating meat is bad for the planet. Your parents are bad for wanting to eat steak all the time. They say, here's the list of how much CO2 emissions, right? Crickets, you get 47.47 kilos of crickets per ounces of CO2, whatever. And you see that apparently bugs are really, really sustainable. The government knows quite a bit about eating bugs. Turns out it's very, very unhealthy. I pulled these right out of the National Library of Medicine 2017 study funded by the government. Said that the chitin in bugs, the exoskeletons, will provoke human innate immunity to generate a deluge of inflammatory cytokines which injure organs and, in persistent situations, lead to death, multiple sclerosis, systemic lupus, and cancer. Sign me up, right? So the goal, folks, is not to save the planet. It's not to save the climate. Like the revolutionaries used to say back in the 60s, the Students for a Democratic Society, the issue is never the issue. It's not about global warming. It's not about sustainable development. It's about enslaving humanity. They want to wipe out small, medium-sized producers, centralize food control in the hands of mega corporations in bed with the mega governments. They want to move the population into the mega cities and ultimately bring about this great reset and what they call the New World Order. And I'm out of time, but I'll leave you with
Dr. Kissinger, our satellite time is running out. What wonderful opportunity to conclude our week here with such concrete proposals and ideas of how we can really create, I would say, a new world order.
Now, hopefully, this has helped you to be able to connect the dots to the things that the scripture warns us about. Unfortunately, most people won't start paying attention until it directly affects them. Well, wake up. That time is here right now. Remember, silence in the face of evil is evil itself. To be silent is equal to consent. Maybe we need to be reminded that God himself asked in Psalms 94 verse 16, he asked this great question: who will rise up for me against the evildoers? Who will stand up for me against the workers of iniquity? I believe this is one reason I must do this, and you and I must speak out, not be deceived, know the truth, and have the truth set us free. Hey, I'm Pastor Chris Morgan, your host. Thank you for joining me for this edition of Current Events. I call you blessed.